Hello friends, welcome back. Today's movie is super thrilling and super emotional. In a quiet town, a terrible event shook everyone, the 619 tragedy. Many children disappeared without a trace, leaving families devastated and desperate for answers. Z, one of the fathers, refuses to give up. He starts digging into the mystery, unaware that what he will find is far darker than he ever imagined. Secrets, danger, and betrayal await him at every turn. Now, the story begins. Z is a successful businessman. His 7-year-old daughter Tina means everything to. Heejin is Tina's personal teacher and caretaker. Today, Z comes to Tina's school to see her perform at the annual day function. Tina is playing the role of an orphan girl, which makes Z emotional, because he too was once an orphan. Z is a religious person who deeply believes in Gautam Buddha. One day, while performing a spiritual ritual named Vesak in front of his house, he suddenly hears Tina screaming for help. He rushes inside and realizes Tina is missing. The police are called immediately. The investigation is led by Captain Jin. They check all CCTV footage, question the servants and Tina's friends. But there is no trace of Tina. The most heartbroken of all is Heejin. Because she was Tina's caretaker. She shares that at the same time as the ritual was going on, some children were playing hide-and-seek nearby. And somehow, in that chaos, Tina went missing. Just then, Z gets a video on his phone. Tina is crying in the video. She's been kidnapped. The place where she was playing had a CCTV camera, but it was cleverly covered with a balloon, so the kidnapper wasn't caught on camera. Captain Jin orders his team to trace the mobile from which the video was sent. Z begins to suspect an old friend named Fuzo. He suspects Fuzo because he wasn't invited to the Vesak ritual. Yet he showed up anyway. Z explains that Fuzo needed money for his son's surgery, so he had given him $3,000. Z thinks maybe after seeing the money in the safe, Fuzo got tempted. But there's no footage of Fuzo taking Tina on any of the cameras. Z believes that someone might have helped in Tina's kidnapping, and that person might still be inside the villa. At that moment, Heejin says that when Tina's friend Pepsi was hiding during the game, the gardener Moshi was nearby. Z turns to question Moshi, but just then he receives a call. It's from the kidnapper. The kidnapper tells Z that if he wants to see his daughter alive, he must pay 100 million in cash by tomorrow. He says he will reveal the drop location the next day. The police are unable to trace the call. The police now suspect that Moshi helped Fuzo in the kidnapping, because it was Fuzo who got Moshi a job at the villa. The police interrogate Moshi. In the lawn mowing machine, they find some of Tina's hair, but Moshi refuses to say anything. Now, the rest of the officers are told about Z's history. It is revealed how Z, coming from an orphanage, became a tycoon in the cosmetics business. Not only that, Z also helped Police Commissioner Desmond find his missing son, for which Desmond arranged finances for Z's business. That's how he became such a big tycoon. Captain Jin explains that now the police have only one way left. When Z meets the kidnapper the next day to give the ransom, they must catch him. Then it is discovered that Z has withdrawn 100 million in cash from the bank, so now the police also brace themselves to catch the kidnapper. The kidnapper messages Z, telling him to come under the raw beach after tricking the police with the money. Z knows the police will surely chase his car, so he hides in Heejin's car and leaves the villa. But the police are smarter, they start chasing Heejin's car. Heejin tells Z, until Tina is found, I will stay with you. Captain Jin was keeping an eye on the control van. The kidnapper calls Z and plays Tina's voice. Sitting in front of the monitors, the kidnapper watches Z and says, I will ask you 3 questions, each with 4 options. If you answer correctly, you will get to Tina. Now the kidnapper asks the first question. Where is the largest slum in Thailand? He gives 4 options. Z answers Kusagi, which is correct. The kidnapper then says Tina is there. Now Z reaches the Maklong River, and the kidnapper asks the second question. Which anesthesia works the fastest? Z replies, you want the money, I have come to get it. Stop this game. The kidnapper says, maybe you don't know, but our conversation is being watched live worldwide. This kidnapping thriller is being live-streamed. Z also learns about the live streaming. There are Reuters and cameras installed on the boat. So even though he doesn't want to, Z answers C. Florine, which is the correct answer. This kidnapping thriller grips the entire nation. Media channels start broadcasting it live. All this causes the police chief to panic, and he gives Captain Jin a 48-hour ultimatum. Meanwhile, the kidnapper asks Z the third question: what is the punishment for child trafficking in Thailand? Z replies, 10 years. Z says to the kidnapper, I've answered all your 3 questions. Now tell me where Tina is. That's when we discover the kidnapper isn't a man, but a woman. The woman then sings a lullaby in a child's voice to Z and says, now you must have understood where to come. Z figures out the location, but the police listening in can't understand. At this point, the news media is puzzled. What is the connection between the questions and Z? It becomes clear to everyone that the kidnapper doesn't want money, she wants something else. Z takes the money and reaches an old orphanage, now in ruins. Z tells Hee-jin, I grew up here. Through a flashback, we learn that when Z was 10 years old, he had been kidnapped and brought to this very orphanage. There, he became friends with a boy named Robin. Z comes out of his memories and enters a room, the same room where children were once tortured. He finds a child tied up inside a sack. Thinking it's Tina, he opens it. But it's not Tina, it's another child. Just then, the kidnapper's voice comes on. She tells Z, there's a van parked outside. Put this boy in it and bring the money. In exchange for this boy, you'll get your girl. If you don't, Tina's finger will be broken. Hee-jin refuses to accept this condition. So Z decides to wait for the police. Hearing this, the woman cuts off Tina's thumb and sends a photo to Z. The woman says, this time it was a finger. Next time, it'll be her neck. So Z and Hee-jin place the boy in the van and head toward a fire pit as instructed. The police start following them. Z drives the van into the forest path. Meanwhile, the woman, the kidnapper, watches Z furiously through a camera. On the other hand, the media starts their own investigation. They discover that the orphanage was shut down years ago due to involvement in child trafficking. Robin sees this news, and just then, he receives a phone call. Meanwhile, Hee-jin also realizes that the kidnapper doesn't want money, she wants something else from Z. Z tells her, we're going to Thonsai Fire, it's connected to my past. Z says, this path is called the CO2 route. Because while transporting kids in vans through here, many have died inside the van due to lack of oxygen. Hee-jin asks him, the boy we put in the van, whose son is he? Z replies, when I first met that man, he was just an ordinary police officer. He used to take orphaned children from the orphanage and supply them to foreign countries, where wealthy families would buy them at high prices. I and Robin were spared because we were considered defective. The children used to be taken to Paya through this path, put in boats, and shipped outside the country. I also started helping him with this operation. Hearing this, Hee-jin is completely shocked. Z continues, the kids who weren't fit to be sold abroad, their arms and legs were broken, and they were forced to beg on the streets. I didn't want that to happen to me. The only way out for me was to join the gang of those criminals. That's when I started kidnapping people from childhood. Fuzo and his wife Tanya also worked for that man. But after getting injured in a boat accident, they probably decided to take revenge on him. Hee-jin tells him, we should inform the police about all this. Z replies, the police can't help us. Because the man running this racket is now the police commissioner himself. His name is Desmond, so it was Commissioner Desmond's son who was locked in Z's car. As soon as the police learn that their commissioner's son has been kidnapped, the entire police force goes into active mode. Z tells Hee-jin that she can return if she wants. But Hee-jin says she won't go back until Tina is safely returned. Just then, they discover that the boy kept in the back of the van has fallen unconscious due to lack of oxygen. So they bring him to the front seat and continue heading toward Paya. Through the streaming from the camera installed in the van, the police also realize they are going toward Paya. As soon as they reach Pyre, Z gets down from the van and walks toward a nearby warehouse. There, he sees burnt dolls and a message written on the wall. On the wall, the year 2017 is written along with the number 619, which turns out to be the number of a boat. Above that, it says, "The past never dies." Just then, the police also arrive at Pyre. They catch Z. Captain Jin wants Z to hand over the commissioner's son to them. But both the boy and Jin have gone missing from the van. At that moment, Commissioner Desmond also arrives. Jin, who is hiding with the boy behind a boat, sees everything. Z says, "This is our karma, coming back to us." Just then, there's a blast in the commissioner's car. Taking advantage of the chaos, the boy breaks free from Jin and runs toward Desmond. But Z grabs the boy and holds him at gunpoint. At that moment, Robin arrives. Z lets go of the boy, hops onto Robin's bike, and escapes. The police fail to catch them. The media finds out that the message written on the warehouse wall is related to the bomb blast that occurred 7 years ago on boat 619, in which 23 young children were killed. Back then, a female police officer named Rini was investigating the case. She had suspected there was a dark secret behind the accident. Because all the children had been labeled as refugees. That case was buried by the police. Now the media believes that the kidnapper is trying to uncover the truth behind that 7-year-old tragedy. The media questions Commissioner Desmond about this. But he simply brushes it off, saying the police are investigating. The police discover that the phone Z was using to contact the kidnapper belonged to his childhood friend Robin, who had grown up with him in the same orphanage. Meanwhile, Robin drops Z at Fuzo's house. When Z arrives, Fuzo isn't home but his wife Tanya is there. Z suspects that Fuzo is the one who kidnapped Tina. Looking at the wallpaper on the wall, his suspicion turns into certainty. Because it's the same wallpaper that was shown in the video the kidnapper sent of Tina. Tanya tells Z, "This is your sin coming back to you." That leads to a physical fight between the two. Frustrated, Z demands to know Tina's location. Tanya doesn't say anything. So Z starts torturing Tanya's sick son. The boy tries to stab Z, but accidentally injures Tanya instead. Z ends up killing the boy and leaves the place. Just then, it's revealed that in the room right opposite to that one, the kidnapper woman lives. And Tina is also shown lying on a bed in that room. Somewhere else, we see Fuzo, he's tied up. He sees on TV that Z has killed his wife and son. Filled with rage, he frees himself and sets out to kill Z. Meanwhile, the kidnapper woman comes to Tanya. Tanya is still alive. The woman shows her a photo of a girl and asks, "Do you remember this girl?" Now the story shifts back 7 years. We see this same girl, Nimu, playing outside a shop. And the kidnapper woman Amy is her mother. Surprisingly, Moshi is Amy's husband and Nimu's father. He owns an electronics shop. While walking down the road, Tanya lures Nimu away and kidnaps her. A helpless Amy breaks down when her daughter goes missing. She pleads with the police to find her daughter. The police in charge there, Rini, tells her that she will do everything she can to find Nimu. Rini is also pregnant, so she understands the pain of a mother. In the 619 boat incident, Nimu lost her life. Rini, with a heavy heart, informs Amy of this tragic news. Hearing about her daughter's death, Amy is completely shattered. Now she wants to know the names of those responsible for her daughter's death. She wants revenge. But Rini doesn't tell her anything. So Amy starts keeping an eye on Rini. One night, when Rini is returning from Pyre in her car, there is a blast in her car, and she dies on the spot. Amy is left crying. Amy and Moshi go to Rini's memorial and swear to take revenge. They begin keeping an eye on Z and Fuzo, who were involved in the 619 case. Amy befriends Tanya. And with Fuzo's help, Moshi gets a job as a gardener at Z's house. The story now returns to the present. Tanya takes her last breath. Amy, speaking to her corpse, says, "It gives me great pleasure to see you die in front of me." On the other hand, Amy directly calls Z. And says, "You killed my daughter. Now your daughter will also die in an accident. If you want to save her, then tell the truth about the 619 incident to the public. I'll reveal everything through a live stream. One lie from you, and your daughter will lose her life. She tells him to come to the 619 boat the next day. Just then, an unknown man suddenly attacks Z. But Heejin arrives right in time and saves him. That unknown man turns out to be none other than Detective Jeng. What's going on? Later, the truth comes out. Z starts thinking maybe it was Desmond who sent Jeng to kill him. Z then tells Heejin, 619 wasn't just an accident. It was a planned disaster, planned by Desmond. He continues, that night, I was the one who loaded those 23 kids into a van and drove them toward Paya. To avoid the police, I took the CO2 route. As soon as we reached Paya, I handed the kids over to Fuzo. Fuzo and Tanya hid the children in large boxes. The boat left with the kids, but soon, the police surrounded it. I called Desmond, asking him to handle the situation with his influence. But Desmond had already fitted explosives on the boat. He activated the timer remotely. Fuzo and Tanya managed to save themselves. But the 23 innocent children died in the blast. Z tells Heejin, I'm going to expose Desmond in front of the entire public. And if something happens to me, promise me you'll take care of Tina. Don't let her grow up like me alone in this world. The next day, Robin drops Z off at Paya. At the site, he sets off on a boat toward the old, abandoned 619 vessel anchored far out at sea. The police soon begin to follow his boat. And from a distant tower, Amy keeps watch. As Z boards the wrecked ship, he searches for Tina until he finds a hidden basement room, filled with monitors. On one screen, he sees both Tina and Heejin tied up and surrounded by bombs. Amy calls Z and says, your daughter isn't far from you. At that moment, the police arrive on the ship, along with Desmond. Desmond snatches Z's phone and smashes it. Now, Amy's voice echoes through the speakers wired into the ship. She tells Z, you have to tell the world how Desmond was involved in child trafficking. People deserve to know the truth behind what happened with 619. In just a few moments, I'll start a live stream. The public waits eagerly for the truth to come out. Amy continues, you'll find the bomb remote in the drawer right in front of you. So, what will it be? Tell the truth. Or press that button and lose your daughter. The choice is yours. Desmond then turns to Captain Jin and says, I need to speak with Z alone. Take the team and leave the boat. But Captain Jin refuses to walk away. Desmond, clearly losing patience, signals his private SWAT team to raise their guns at Captain Jin's team. Shockingly, Captain Jin's own assistant betrays him and fires a shot. Jeng is hit. Z watches in disbelief. The entire police unit is forced out of the control room. That's when a shocking truth is revealed. Rini, the officer who died 7 years ago, was Captain Jin's wife. She had nearly uncovered the truth behind the 619 case. Desmond knew it. He realized that if she got any closer, she'd eventually reach him. So, he arranged for her to be blown up in that car explosion. With her died the unborn child she was carrying, Captain Jin's child. Now, Desmond kills Captain Jin too, tying up the last loose end. Watching all of this, Z is overwhelmed with rage. He reveals a bomb strapped to his own body and threatens Desmond. If you try to stop the live stream, I'll detonate it. We'll both die right here. But Desmond smirks and says coldly, I know you, Z. You're selfish. Instead of sacrificing yourself, you would let your own daughter die. He steps closer and continues. As a child, you chose to protect yourself by joining us. And as an adult, you got so greedy. You started kidnapping children with families. Not just orphans. Desmond steps closer, his voice now filled with venom. You're the one who set off the hidden bombs on the 619 boat. You did it to save your own skin. I told you to escape, Z. I never gave permission to kill those children. And now, you're trying to throw the blame on me? He scoffs. You're the one who murdered 23 innocent kids, not me. Then he growls. I'll count to 3. Either blow yourself up, or detonate the bomb on Tina. The choice is yours, monster. Without flinching, Z grabs the remote and presses the button tied to Tina's bomb. Desmond laughs bitterly. That's who you really are. I've never seen anyone filthier than you. Watching this, even Amy can't stop her tears. But then everything changes. Hidden cameras, specifically, a button cam on Captain Jin's shirt, had recorded the entire confrontation. Every word. Every confession. And it was all streamed publicly. This was Captain Jin's plan all along. To bring the truth behind the 619 tragedy to light. A truth his late wife, Rini, had once died trying to expose. Thanks to the video evidence, Desmond and Z are arrested on the spot. The investigation reveals that Desmond had trafficked many orphaned children over the years. The horrifying scale of his crimes shocks the nation. Meanwhile, in the hospital, wounded Z slowly regains consciousness and sees Hee-jin standing in front of him. Turns out, Tina and Hee-jin were never really strapped to a live bomb. Amy had faked it. The real bomb? It was hidden on a different boat altogether. Amy knew one thing for certain. You could never trust a monster like Z. And she was right. He proved it when he chose to save himself. By sacrificing his own daughter. What could be more disgusting than that? That's when another painful truth comes to light. 7 years ago, Hee-jin had lost her own 8-year-old son in the 619 incident. Z is stunned. After Rini's death, the investigation into the 619 tragedy was silenced. But the pain of the parents never was. The mothers and fathers of those murdered children came together, bound by grief, and created a secret group, led by none other than Captain Jin. Seeing their children's burned corpses, many of them stopped believing in humanity altogether. Hee-jin's child was snatched from her. Before she could even blink, the one reason she had to live was ripped from her world. That loss became her fuel. Captain Jin made a vow that he would uncover every single person behind this network of evil. He would expose the truth. Some parents, devastated and depressed, left the country altogether. Others sought peace in spirituality, turning to Buddha's path. But the rest, they stood with Captain Jin, and with his help, they began uncovering the horrifying chain behind this monstrous child trafficking ring. During his investigation, Captain Jin discovered the truth. Desmond, Z, Fujo, and Tanya were all deeply involved in the child trafficking network. That's when Captain Jin began crafting a plan. Hee-jin used her acting skills to infiltrate. She got a job as Tina's personal tutor. Amy, meanwhile, grew close to Tanya, so she could sneak Moshi into the villa. The parents, who were media professionals, took on the responsibility of managing the live stream. When the time was right, Moshi kidnapped Tina and placed her in Fujo's car. The moment Fujo left the villa, Captain Jin ambushed him, knocked him unconscious, and locked him away in a secret location. Moshi, being careful and clever, hid the kidnapped Tina in the trunk of Captain Jin's car, from where Hee-jin later smuggled her to Amy. That's when Amy reached out to Z and began the entire staged kidnapping drama. Gaining Tina's trust, Hee-jin made her act out the crying scene. Even the thumb cutting, all makeup. None of it was real. Z wasn't trying to save his daughter. He was desperately trying to hide a truth that, if exposed, would destroy him completely. Hee-jin, staring him straight in the eye, says, "We only wanted the truth to come out. But what you did, even monsters would flinch." That's when Z finally opens up and confesses what really happened that night. He was with Robin, and together, they packed 23 innocent children into a van and headed toward the pier, trying to dodge the police. Z had taken the longer CO2 route to avoid police patrols. But by the time they reached the pier, it was too late. All the children had died from suffocation. In a panic, they stuffed the bodies into crates and dumped them into the sea. Z knew, if Desmond ever found out the truth, he'd lose all trust in him. So, Z played a twisted game. He secretly informed the police about the boat and made sure it was blown up, covering his tracks with an explosion. Hee-jin, horrified, tells him, "Buddha will never forgive you." So many children were ripped away from their parents forever. A few days before Z's sentencing, an unidentified man sneaks into Desmond's jail cell and strangles him to death. Media report it as a suicide. Meanwhile, Robin, still on the loose, plans to rescue Z during his court appearance by causing a bomb blast in the crowd. But fate has its own plans. A group of street kids surrounds Robin's car. One of them, thinking the bomb remote is a toy, steals it. Z, now being transported from the hospital to court, faces a furious mob, people screaming for justice. Robin pulls up near the crowd, ready to trigger the explosion. Among the crowd is Fuzo, the man who lost both his wife and child, and now wants revenge. Hee-jin also arrives, bringing Tina with her. The moment Z sees his daughter, his emotions overwhelm him. And just then, Robin, frantically searching for the remote, realizes it's gone. Fuzo draws his gun, ready to shoot. But at a distance, children mistake the bomb remote for a toy. They start playing with it. And in the commotion, the remote slips from their hands. A button is pressed. The car explodes instantly. Robin's body is torn apart. Chaos erupts, people scatter in panic. Seizing the moment, Tina runs toward her father, Z. But Fuzo, blinded by rage, doesn't aim at Z. He points his gun at Tina. Z rushes to protect his daughter. But it's too late. Perhaps this is Z's karma catching up with him. And with that, the movie ends. In the end, the truth about the 619 tragedy and child trafficking was revealed. The bad people were caught, but the pain of losing innocent children stayed with their families forever. Though justice was done, the sadness remained. This story shows that no matter how deep the secrets are hidden, the truth will come out. Now, the sea quietly holds the memories of those lost, reminding everyone to protect children and never let such evil happen again.